Okay, we ready? This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open for public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Email comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting were distributed to the city council prior to the meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Kirchner.
Present.
Vice Mayor Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Baumgarten.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Thank you for that. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 items for closed session this evening. The first is item A, conference with labor negotiators. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representatives are Diana Langley, City Manager, Natalie Springer, Human Resources Director, Brad McIntyre, or successor, Community Services Director, Spencer Morrison, Finance Director, Ben Moody, Public Works and Development Services Director, Brian Baker, Police Chief, Jesse Alexander, Fire Chief, and Michael Jarvis, LCW. The employee organizations are Yuba City Police Officers, Police Sergeants, Yuba City Firefighters, Local 3793, Yuba City Fire Management, First Level Manager, Mid-Managers, Police Sworn Mid-Managers, and Public Employees, Local Number 1. The unrepresented employees are confidential employees, executive services employees. Item B for closed session is confer with real property legal negotiator under Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is APN 52161036, located at 847 Chestnut Street, Yuba City, California, and APN 510952020, 1483 Gray Avenue, Yuba City, California. The negotiator is Diana Langley, the city manager / executive director. The negotiating parties are to be determined. Under negotiation is whether to sell the properties, and if so, the price and terms of the payment. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will adjourn to closed session. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome. This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open for public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Emailed comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the city meeting were distributed to the city council prior to the meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Kirchner.
Present.
Vice Mayor Harris. Here. Councilmember Baumgarten.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Thank you for that. At this point, we will rise and Pastor David Kim of the First United Methodist Church will give the invocation and will remain standing, and the pledge will be given by Mr. Manny Cordoza.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we are grateful for your presence with us as we gather here tonight. We are grateful for your protection over our community where we live. We thank you so much for blessing all the families and businesses, and especially all the hardworking people in our community doing their businesses in their offices, in their restaurants, in their farming lands. Lord, bless this church, bless this city, and council members and all their and the community leaders who work tirelessly for the prosperity, peace, safety, and cooperation of this community. May their commitment and dedication bear fruit, making this community even safer and more vibrant and constantly thriving. As we gather tonight to discuss various businesses, grant us your wisdom and unified heart. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Attorney's report on closed session items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action in closed session.
Thank you, sir. Agenda modifications approval. Agenda item 7 will be pulled from the consent calendar. We're going to begin tonight with ceremonial presentations. Number 1, Fletcher's Plumbing 50-year anniversary proclamation. At this point, I'd like to invite Adam and Carl Fletcher to come forward and counsel to meet me up at front, please. So we go back, don't we?
Yeah.
We go back, yeah.
At least high school.
Yeah.
Not even further.
I think so, probably Gray Avenue. Well, well, thank you guys for being here tonight. If you've spent any time in the Yuba Center area, you've heard the name Fletcher's Plumbing, at least for the last 50 years. Just iconic, and not just our region, but Chico?
Yeah,
In Sacramento. So you guys continue to grow. We're rooting for you. We're proud of you, and we're glad you're here tonight. So I got something to present to you, and I'm gonna start by saying, whereas the City of Yuba City would like to celebrate and recognize Fletcher's Plumbing and Contracting, Inc. founder Rod Fletcher and the company's current owners, Carl and Adam Fletcher, for 50 years in business. Fletcher's Plumbing and Contracting, Inc. was founded in 1973 by Rod and Eleanor Fletcher. 15 years later, the Fletcher's sons, Carl and Adam, joined the family business. The first Fletcher's Plumbing office opened on 2nd Street. Currently, they have 45 experienced professionals and provide multiple services along with general contracting. At Fletcher's Plumbing and Contracting, Inc., they stand by the work and strive to get it done right. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Wade Kirshner, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, and on behalf of our entire City Council, do hereby congratulate Fletcher's Plumbing and Contracting, Inc. on their 50-year anniversary. Let's give them a hand. Would you like to say a few words, Adam?
Sure. Didn't really prepare a speech or anything, but Dad started in 1973. I was 4 years old at the time, so didn't know anything. Carl actually came on before I did because he graduated in 1983 out of Yuba City High School. I graduated in 1987, and I do remember my counselor asked me, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And it was Neil Philbrook, and I think he's no longer with us. But I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to work for my dad." And he's like, "You really want to do that, huh?" Like, well, yeah, I think so. I kind of like the trades. I worked with him all summer. During the summer, it was my junior and senior year. And I said, yeah, I think I'll end up being a tradesman. I think that's the direction I'm going to go. So here it is, not for me 50 years, but I think I started in 87, so I can't do my math real quick, but it's like 35, give or take, years. And Carl's been there longer, but it has its ups and downs, that's for sure, but we're still here. Oh, no. Thank you so much.
You bet. We're going to take a few pictures here real quick. Hope you got a place in your office for this.
Oh, we do. Good. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, and at this point, I'd like to invite Sutter County Sheriff Deputy Andre Licon to come forward, please. For those of you, few, who don't know Andre, he's one of our public service people that keep our community safe. Specifically, we're here to recognize his work with the homelessness population. And I can't say enough about Andre without it going to his head. But just one of five. I have the opportunity to just watch you on a daily basis. And thank you for everything you've done. And I'll start with that. So I do want to mention your contributions to the City of Yuba City with the assistance and significant improvements to the homeless encampments in the surrounding area. Your dedication and professionalism sets the example of addressing the homelessness in the community. Thank you and your commitment to the city of Yuba City, which enriches the quality of life in Yuba City. Let's give them a hand. Would you like to say a word?
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the recognition. It's truly an honor for me to be up here with these gentlemen and before you here today. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and it's wonderful to be appreciated in this community.
Okay, public communication, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda. When they are called, public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitted written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinion of the group. I do have several speaker cards. The first one is from Teresa Schmidt. No, I'm sorry, ma'am, right back here.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the time to do this. My name is Teresa Schmidt. I, along with my husband, own Twin Cities floor covering at 816 Plymouth Street. Recently, I've noticed an incline of the homeless population on Plymouth Street. We seem to have crowds now where there used to be singles. We have roll-up doors in our back that we used to leave open for deliveries, but now we must close them. Now let me tell you why. Numerous random people walking in the warehouse looking around. Going back there after the bell goes off when you're alone is pretty scary. The traffic, both foot and vehicle, in the alley on Walnut has gotten so out of hand, our delivery drivers have noticed and locked their trucks when delivering. In the past year or so, theft of a generator, $900. Bullet shot in front of our 10-foot window, $1,500. Multiple calls to the Yuba City Police Department for people sleeping in our doorway area or storefront area. 2 weeks ago, we witnessed a young man on a severe, for lack of a better word, trip. Directly across the street, lasted about 45 minutes. We called the police, they came and questioned him and took him away. We had a customer at the time, and let me tell you, they were pretty shocked at the sight. If you've ever seen that firsthand, let me tell you, it was pretty frightening to actually see that. I've seen it on TV and all that, but never in real life, and it was pretty scary. We've had to walk customers to their car to ensure their safety. On Sunday, August 20th, 2023, at 2:05 in the morning, someone broke our fuse box and stole our fuses, which knocked out our power, our phone, security, everything, until late Monday afternoon. That cost was $630, not to mention the food that we had to throw out of the refrigerator. Countless times I've had to pick up cups, wrappers, cigarette butts, plain trash in front of the store. Unfortunately, I've had to pick up feces and clean what appeared to be urine off the sidewalk and windows and entryway. I've been screamed at, cussed at, while just walking down the street. There's a gravel dirt lot next door between us and Queen Penny, and that's where they tend to hang out. Groups of them with animals, dogs, all that. They leave a mess that needs to be cleaned up daily. I believe there's a no trespass there at Queen Penny lot, but they don't seem to mind. We've also seen a woman giving herself a bath in their faucet in the middle of the day. We had one just come in the door. Luckily, our bell went off and we were able to shoo them out, but they sat down and plugged in their phone and started charging their phone because we have an outlet in front. Let's see. They come in and out of our store wanting to use the restroom, wanting to something to eat, something to drink. It's only a matter of time before we say no to the wrong person and somebody's gonna get hurt. We're right next to a pawn shop and right next to Queen Penny, so it's a scary place in general. But it's gotten really bad lately. There's a group, that was my time, sorry.
If you can just wrap it up real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And all this to say is the people in homeless, a few years ago there was a fire in the Queen Penny lot because somebody wasn't living in the tile lot, but I know that there was, and it ended up costing us almost $5,000. And for a small business like us, we're not a franchise or anything, we're a small business, that's a lot of money to rack up. And I just wanted to voice my concern, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. The next card is from Miss Sandy Drown. Sorry about that. I do that every time. Miss Sandy Drown.
Can you see me? Okay, good. Good evening, Mayor and Councilman and Diana. I'm Sandy Drown, and our residence, our business is 741 Plymouth Street. It's the Happy Viking, and I'm also the current president of the Downtown Business Association. And so I'm here in front of you just to share some concerns from some of our merchants and customers. The last 3 weeks, I would say there's been a lot more activity. We have our normal homeless that we interact with, but it's gotten where I don't know if there's somebody busts them in, or I don't know, but there's just been, and they're a lot more violent. I was at Justin's having dinner, and there was somebody that ran in, another guy was chasing him. They did not look like our residential homeless that's around our neighborhood, but there's just been a lot of activity in the last 3 to 2 weeks. Teresa is not the only business that's had her PG&E, the fuses stolen from. It's happening on both ends of the street, on north and south, and so we just wanted to come and share that. We don't know what's triggered that, but it's just, it's a lot more than we're used to dealing with, so that was it. And then on a good note, I always like to leave on a good note. The Happy Viking has their first beer made by Sutter Buttes Brewery, and I wanted to share it with the council.
Yay! Guess who our new favorite is? Thank you, Ms. Drown. Thank you. Yeah, it is cold.
Well, you can look at it. It's really cute. The logo's cute. Look at it. Isn't it cute?
That's awesome. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. Thank you. Or we're going to get phone calls about that.
Beer delivery.
The next one is Miss Heather Essman.
Good evening, gentlemen. If I need to start. So first, Heather Essman. I live on the corner of Lincoln and Sanborn in Beat 6. So I just wanted to, I know that I've mentioned this and some other people have mentioned this before about how the difference is living in Beat 6 as opposed to other places, besides the fact that for some reason they didn't invite the sheriff's office to communicate to you on the homeless issue, but I can tell you we do have homeless over there, maybe not as bad obviously along the highway, but we do. And so just to give you an example, I use 311 very fast. I like 311. That was the best thing you guys ever did. Because you can really see what's going on and you can track things, and it's almost automatic where they just send stuff over. So I noticed that there was a truck that, it's a car, you leave it there, it's been there for a while. But now they're throwing garbage in the back. They've got a big mattress in there. And so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and report it this time because the tags they're like 2 years old. And the tire on the front is not even on the front rim. So I called, put it in, and the sheriff's office actually did come down, but they didn't put a sticker like you guys have a sticker or something. It's really bold colored. They put a little yellow piece of paper underneath the windshield and said if it doesn't move by August 5th, I believe was the date on the windshield. Do you think it's been towed yet? No. This morning it still wasn't towed. There's 2 other ones that haven't been moved. I didn't say anything about them because it's not like they're throwing garbage in the sedan. Their windows are closed and everything. So that's fine. But that's kind of the difference that we have now, right? That if we expect, if I lived over in another area, they would have done a better job of towing that. I can guarantee you that. So I don't think it's fair to us because we live there and somebody somewhere made a decision to make that beat 6, that we can't try to work to get that done so that we can get beat 6 into a Yuba City Police Department. I just wanted you to know that there is difference, even though you're probably just thinking that we come up here and complain occasionally because we don't like being in the sheriff's office. There is a difference in services. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to mention quickly to our partners on Plymouth Street that today when I was getting my dry cleaning, I spoke with the owner there, and he shared with me pictures of behind his business. And so what I want to communicate to you is your voices are being heard. Thank you. Any other public communication? Any other comments from the public? Yes.
My name is Thomas Burns. It's good to be back, and nothing has changed.
Okay. Public comment? Anybody else for public comment?
How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. My name is Benjamin Garcia, resident here in Yuba City. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to say today. There's a lot on my mind. A lot of interactions I've had with the city, starting right here in this council back in 2020, being arrested. Long story short, falsified documentation. The DA did not pick up or make any advances on the charges that were alleged in this room. It got me going down the road of doing my own legal research and questioning things that I was told that I had to do, which I think is still relevant today, even in the absence of COVID-19. Every day, I try to learn and earn a living as a man of faith, a man of integrity. I want to do things the right way. But everywhere I turn, I feel like there's roadblocks. I have to pay this. I have to do this. I have to get a license for this. I decided to start my own business because I felt like my customers were not getting what they were paying for. And I am probably more qualified, maybe I would say in the area, I would put myself amongst 10 of the top tradesmen in my class. Not trying to boast, I've sat amongst them. I just think that my interactions with the public, with some of the servants, with some of the people at the front desk, they're telling people that they have to do things, but they don't really understand why they're telling them they have to do the things that they're being required to do. We have a constitution. No law can be passed, and it's notwithstanding if it goes against the Constitution, period. I guess where I am today really is just to start a conversation, because in 3 minutes I can't say everything I need to say. But I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm not gonna give up, and I'm not gonna stop fighting. Because there are laws, there's rules, there's regulations, there's statutes, even within the city of Yuba City, that really, it doesn't make sense. And I guess I'll end my 15 seconds. If I didn't have to I'll just boldly say this, if I didn't have to get a C20 license, I wouldn't, because I know that my work is good. But I understand there's gotta be a vetting process. But that very vetting process is being used by the city to require me to now get a business license within the city to earn a living for my family. Where does it end? That's all I gotta say. Where does it end?
Thank you. Did you state your name?
Benjamin Garcia.
And your address?
710 Aspen Drive.
Thank you very much.
A lot of people in this room who already know.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Is there any other? Is it Kim Mogart?
Kimberly Marquardt.
And, okay, thank you.
And I have a business license in this community, the Heaven Can Wait Life Coaching. I'm unhoused at the moment, as you all know. And my address is at the Yuba City Boat Docks, here in Yuba City. And I've got so many things I would like to go over with you all. And but the one that's really weighing on my mind right now is the fact that we have a problem in the state of California, across the whole country, about the homelessness. And I catch my breath here because this is overwhelming for me, because it's been a long time coming for me to be up here and to say what I got to say. The services that you all provided for legalized camping, for the Sutter County legalized camping, they're on 2nd Street, the little pallets on the ground and stuff, and with the shooting range right next to you, no running water, no cover, no shelter for anybody that's disabled. There is no restrooms in this town, and I did a little bit of figuring, because I came to the conclusion that the city and the counties of California have contaminated the waterways because of the non-management of your sewage. There is no restrooms for the homeless people or anybody, for that matters, to use the restroom. And I got a little bit of figures here, because as human beings, we all have to use the restroom every single day. Every single day. And when you don't have a place to use the restroom, it kind of turns you into like an animal, And that's a lot of the problem that people have being homeless right now, is the ability to be able to release themselves in a human way, you know what I'm saying? And I did some figuring, because as human beings, we all release the same amount of feces and urine every single day. And I took the homeless count of 963 between Yuba and Sutter County, and I added that up, and we are producing, just here in Yuba Sutter area, 308,160 pounds of feces a year from our population of our homeless count. We are producing 130,500 gallons of urine. That's like 21 big rigs, semi-big rigs, and just gonna come to town and just spray it all around, all over everybody. Can you imagine that? 21 big rigs of urine. That's what we're producing in our waterways. And if you take the whole state of California, we are producing a year 54 million pounds of feces and 22,950,000 gallons of urine. And where do you think that's going? It's going into our waterways. I have a lot more to discuss with y'all. And matter of fact, I got my own porta potty, and it's down there at Mosquito Beach. because it's unacceptable. I'm not going to put a footprint on this earth. And you all have called and have them try to remove it. And what would that reason be for? I'm paying for my own toilet to dispose of my waste that you all are supposed to be paying for. You collect the grant money and you collect all this money, so therefore you should be the ones that pay for the sewage, correct? So, but the EPA, it's going to be a big thing. But yeah, that's what we're producing.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Any further public comment? Okay.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
If I could just go back to our first speaker tonight, I'd like to make a request. We discussed this earlier today, you and I, but Plymouth Street I know very well because the last DBA meeting we had, my truck was vandalized while we were across the street in the meeting and had to get that fixed. Yeah. And since the most of that's in my district, Ms. Langley, do you think that we could get with Chief Baker and maybe set up a little, I don't know if you want to call it a town hall or what, but with the DBA and Chief, if you can now, because we need to find solutions and we need to get the chief involved because my understanding, Chief, you really haven't been brought into the conversation yet, and I'd love to bring you into it to help get this addressed.
Yeah, we can just maybe try and schedule it to be at the next DBA meeting, because since a lot of those folks try and make time to get down there so it doesn't inconvenience them for another time.
Ms. Langley, does that work for you? Thank you. That's my only request.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none. Consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. Prior to that time, the council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar items 4 through 6 and 8? Any public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Through the mayor?
Yes.
I move that we approve consent items 4 through 8 with the exception of 7.
I have a motion from Councilmember Shaw.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, moving along to business items, special event permit, application process, and event fees. And this is presented by our Fire Chief, Jesse Alexander.
Mayor, council members, good evening. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about special event permitting application process and event fees. The city does not have a formalized special event permitting process, though there are many special events programmed throughout the year, ranging from a few to many thousands of participants. The current way we handle these events is to use a street closure memo, which is inadequate for the complexity of these events. Best practice dictates that a process should be established to better assist with liability, consistency, clarity, planning, and multi-agency coordination. For the purpose of this presentation, a special event application is divided into 2 criteria and be required when any organized activity is conducted at any city park, city building, city street, or any other city facility where the public is invited and admitted with a common purpose for one of the following: where fees are charged or monies collected, alcohol or food to be sold, the location is beyond the normal capacity or typical range of its use, or the activity on a street or a public place is impacted in a manner that disrupts normal user traffic patterns. So this is the first criteria. The second is based upon number of participants. The special events are broken into different tiers. A tier 2 event, which is 1,000 to 24,999 people, and a tier 1 event, which is anything greater than 25,000 people. Anything less than that would fall outside of what we're discussing as this part of this 2-tier component of a special event purposes. With the tier concept, application submission dates, city review timelines, and liability insurance minimums would have different different minimums to them, as you can see from this slide. The permit application is also broken into several modules based upon a screening questionnaire so that applicants only need to fill out the necessary modules for their event. These modules address the following bullet points that you see on this slide, ranging all the way from fencing to waste management to food concessions. The information gathered from these modules allows city staff to better prepare, plan, and staff for these type of events in a safe manner. So to follow those two main criteria, events that we've had in the past that would meet those would be the Summer Stroll, Winter Stroll, the Terra Parade, the Hain Avenue Parade, and 4th of July Children's Parade. So to provide council tonight with a total picture of costs for going into this slide includes existing fees for certain special event permitting, including fireworks, assembly permits, zone clearances, and disability access. These permits are already being charged for these events. There are 4, however, on here that are not currently on our master fee schedule that are being proposed, and they are highlighted in the blue section. That would include Yuba City Fire Department actual costs for personnel and equipment, Yuba City Public Works actual costs for personnel and equipment, an application deposit based upon tiers, and a late processing fee based upon tiers. The application deposit would be fully refunded unless there was violations that were incurred during that process. So actual costs, what does those actual costs for those 2 items mean? So the definition that we've determined for personnel for city actual costs are one of these 2, where personnel assigned to an event that requires work in excess of their normal work schedule and not part of their normal staffing assignment, or personnel requested off-duty to assist with mitigating an incident at the event. Actual costs for vehicles and apparatus. On a Tier 2 event, staff is proposing that vehicles and apparatus costs be waived unless the nature of the event requires that a specific vehicle or apparatus is pre-identified with the event coordinator. In a Tier 1 event, vehicle apparatus that would be utilized by actual cost personnel will be calculated at full freight costs for police and public works and OES rates for fire apparatus. Sponsorship applications can be completed by nonprofits and event coordinators, and sponsor applications would allow consideration to waive portions of actual cost. So I have 2 examples of actual events that we've had in the past that would now fall into some of these categories. So this is an event that we've had in the past that would now fall into a Tier 2 category. Services that were provided during that portion were street closures, barricades, vendors, life safety inspections, and traffic control. The city's actual costs during this event included 1 traffic sergeant, 3 motor officers, 2 reserve officers, for an actual recovery cost of $3,200. Uncharged resources for this included 3 planning meetings that consisted of 5 city personnel at each planning meeting, 10 street maintenance workers, and 2 fire inspectors. So an example of a previous event that would now fall into a Tier 1 category is services that were provided were street closers, scene security, vendors for life safety inspections, traffic control, incident command structure, fire protection, emergency medical services, public information officers, incidentals including maps, printing apparatus, bomb squad, hazardous materials team. Actual costs were 59 Yuba City Police Department staff, 25 Yuba City Fire Department staff, 6 Yuba City Public Works staff, and an actual recovery cost of a little over $74,000. Uncharged resources for this event included 7 planning meetings that consisted of 15 to 20 personnel per meeting, 1 very large tabletop exercise, equipment including radios, cell, video cameras, monitors, 20+ hours of incident action plan development, and public service announcements. So I will tell you this will be a work in progress, and this is taking a small bite out of the planning process. And I would anticipate down the road at some point we would have to reevaluate this and look at other events, just to make sure that we are providing the best service to the community and keeping everybody safe during these large events. So staff's recommendation is conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving a special event permit process and amending the schedule of fees and charges for city services related to the same. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief. public hearing for consideration of this special event permit application process and events fees is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I am closing the public hearing and bringing the matter back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Chief, first of all, thank you for all the work that you and everybody else has put into this, because we do have some large events here in the city, and public safety is paramount. And firsthand, when I was mayor last year, I watched you guys go through those and the early morning briefings and all the different personnel, and it was quite impressive. And so there's a lot that goes into that. I think it's time that we formalize things so that it's a standard across the board. It allows us to give better service and protection, I think, to our residents. And at the same time, I can see with where this has evolved already, you're also trying to minimize the impact to the people having the events. And it's a very fine balance and a delicate one there to do. So I just want to say thank you. And before I make a motion, I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
Okay. Well, I'll say a few things. I'm just going to reiterate what Councilmember Shaw said. Thank you for all the work that goes into something like this. And there's the other big word, liability, and that's something as a city we have to be very, very cognizant of. In addition to public safety. Something happened recently outside of our community that really highlighted the importance of having this process, and that's what almost happened in Elk Grove back in March on the way to a parade there. And our district attorney was quoted as saying a bloodbath, quote unquote, was averted by that. And that's what we're trying to make sure doesn't happen in our community. And I would like to think that I share a seat on a council that is very aware and appreciative to our law enforcement professionals that the city has. So thank you.
All right, through the mayor.
Yes.
I move that we adopt a resolution approving a special event permit process and amending the schedule of fees and charges for city services related to the same as presented tonight.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Shaw and a second from Vice Mayor Harris. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Moving along. Number 10, 2022-23 Grand Jury Report Response. This is presented by Mr. Ben Moody.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item I have before you tonight is in regards to the 22-23 Grand Jury Report regarding roads and the city's response. So let me walk you through this. And so this year in July, the city received the grand jury report, and the grand jury report was specific to roads. They titled the report Local Government Report Rough Roads Ahead for Yuba City. And so with that report, there was 4 findings and 4 recommendations. And in accordance with the penal code, state penal code, the city has 90 days to prepare a response and then submit it to the Superior Court. So with those 4 findings, F1 through F4, the city was required to respond to all of them except for F3. And so I'll briefly go through them. They are attached in the report, and so I'll briefly highlight them. So F1, finding 1, the road pavements throughout Yuba City currently require extensive maintenance and refurbishment to sufficiently provide for critical transportation infrastructure. F2, the budget for the road pavements of Yuba City is inadequate to improve or even maintain their current poor, fair condition into the future. F3, Yuba City has created an app, YC311, to make it easier for the residents to report road maintenance concerns. And finding 4, Yuba City Council is attempting to address the serious problems with the deteriorating municipal road payments and is struggling to find a funding solution. So with these, you're going to hear from me later that we agree with these findings. And if anything, this has been highlighted through our budget workshops, through various reports and presentations recently and in the past. And so with this, for the benefit of the public, I'm gonna quickly go through the budget presentation on roads. It gives a little more depth of where we're at and where the city council's understanding of the roads, and then I'll highlight the responses. And then with the recommendations, the grand jury made recommendations, R1 through R4, that required responses. With that, I'll dive into the responses because they're more specific towards the end of the presentation. So real quick highlight, I'm going to cruise through this because I know the city council has seen this, but it's really for the public, just to understand what's been presented to the city council, what's been presented to the public in the past regarding where the city understands we're at with our road. So streets responsibilities. So the city of Yuba City, we maintain over 510 lane miles of roadway across the city. So with the streets division, we're not only doing road maintenance, you're having curb gutter, sidewalk repairs. We have 40 traffic signals, over 2,000 streetlights, storm drainage facilities, scheduled emergency street sweeping, weed abatement, cleanup crews for the various encampments, shopping carts, et cetera, traffic control, emergency response, and various street closures. Of that, the money that comes in from all the various sources for road work for those different services is about $5.7 million. And so there's a mixed bag, a formula that comes to come up to that annual amount between franchise fees, RMRA, SB1 funding, Transportation Development Act, TDA money, and then various state and federal gas taxes that are paid at the pump that then come back to the city. And so with that $5.7 million to do all of the work required and have a capital improvement project to make repairs and improvements to the city, how it basically breaks out in the scheme of things between operations, it takes about $2 million to fund the street engineering crews that go out and do those potholes, do that street work. You have about 40 to 50% where we're doing project matches where we obtain grants like Bridge Street, Walton Avenue. And then what that leaves you basically besides striping, traffic signal, minor maintenance work is about 17%. And so what that really means is about $1 million to $1.5 million a year annually out of that 5.7. So every year I'm getting about 5.76 million. What really is hitting the streets is about $1 million, $1.5 million to actually maintain your roads. And so the city, in order to manage our road system, because of that 510 miles, we use a standard system. It's called a pavement management system. It's Street Saver. It's an industry standard, and we regularly keep it up to date just to manage where we're at, cost inflations, and how we prioritize work. And so what that does is it really just breaks down every single road in Yuba City by street section, by length, and then we look at a different formula matrix as far as how we repair that. Is it crack sealing? Is it then go to a slurry or a microsurfacing? Is it patch paving? And then does it get into a rehab or a more costly fix? And then we break those sections down so we can figure out where we're at. And so where that really puts us to date is that to bring our roads into a good condition, into a state of good condition, we have about $150 million of deferred maintenance that's on the ground as we speak. Where's the city at? So where the city's at based on our survey is that we're right here at 54. So we're moving out of this fair range and we're moving into the poor range. And why this is so important is in the next couple slides, because it really highlights this exponential cost that increases as the roads deteriorate. And it's, as many of the public know and everybody in town, is that it was really highlighted this winter with the rain. With a few dry years, it maybe wasn't as noticeable, but when the rain hit for that long duration, it was just pothole after pothole, and they're hard to fix. Yuba City's network, this is just a little bit of information regarding the miles, the pavement condition index for the different types of roads. So you have arterials like Bridge Street, Walton, Lincoln, they're around a 56. Collectors, those are your Pebble Beach, your Jamie Road, they're a little bit worse of a state, and then your local streets are your typical residential roads. So they're about in this 40 to 50 range. And then you have the different, how the money's broken out for those different items. Where's the city compared to the area? This is numbers directly from a state report that was issued relatively recently in the city. We're sitting at a 54, and you see Marysville's about similar. And then you have Sacramento, Sutter County. So we're not alone, but you can see we're at the bottom end of it. Some perspective with those numbers, with the pavement condition index, that PCI of 85, this is what a good road looks like. This is a Bridge Street that was paved 5-6 years ago. You have Lincoln Road that's in the fair condition is 61. You're starting to see some cracking. And then you have Butte House Road in this poor situation where you're starting to get, chunks pop out. You're getting some serious cracks, and you're needing to get into restoration that takes quite a bit more work. And then you have a failed state. So this is Garden Highway, south of Lincoln Road, in between Winship, and basically it's really the repair method is remove and replace. So again, this is why it's so critical. With Yuba City being 54, we're hitting this exponential, how fast it deteriorates with time, where you're starting to hit this drop off. And with that, there's this exponential cost. It's not a linear approach. And so you have where you keep good roads good, you're in the $7 per square yard to maintain it. But when you start dropping down into this poor and failed, you're up in the $75, $83 to $100. The price tag just continues to go up. And so what does that $1 million get you? So like I said, that $1.5 million that we're spending, we're really only getting about 8 miles of pavement maintenance, or if you're doing preventative maintenance, slurry seals, micro seals. And then if you let your roads get down into this deteriorated state, that $1 million is not going very far. When you have 500 lane miles to take care of, the $1 million just doesn't cut it. This is a graph, a lot's going on with this. But what it's showing is, this is our state right here, 54, our pavement condition index, and it's deteriorating over 10 years from a 54 to a 32 if we keep putting the same amount of funding in, that $1.5 million. And then it shows the deferred maintenance going from 150 to $376 million over a 10-year period because of that exponential cost. So this is a big takeaway. So in 10 years from now, if the city doesn't change what we're doing and how we're funding it, the PCI, or pavement condition index, is going to be at the bottom side of the poor, entering failed. And so that picture of Garden Highway, some of those roadways, that's, if the funding source doesn't change on how we maintain the roads, that's where we're headed with the roads. Key takeaways here is that, again, if we continue at $1.5 million a year, 10-year projection, we're going to be in poor shape. The deferred maintenance grows to $376 million. And the numbers basically required to maintain an existing condition. So just to keep us where we're at, we need to be spending $11 to $12 million a year annually just to keep us where we're at. And then if we want to increase, so we're starting to increase our road condition and bring it up towards the state average, we need to really be spending close to $18 million a year. Okay, so that was a little segue. Just that's where the cities, we've informed the city council, that's where city staff is understanding, that's the state of the city. And so we've received this grand jury response, this report that really dove in. They met with staff, they dove into these numbers, and what came out of that is this report with their findings and recommendations. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning with the findings, we absolutely agree. And so, where we had, let me read. So in the response, it was not only just, let me find out let me get to the response page. With the findings, the city road payments throughout Yuba City currently require extensive maintenance and refurbishment to sufficiently provide for critical transportation. It's not only critical transportation, it's really just the way of life for local residents that are in front of residential streets. And so the response is we agree. Finding 2, the budget for the road pavements of Yuba City is inadequate to improve or even maintain the current poor fare condition. Absolutely agree. That is what staff is presenting and what council's been looking at through different options on how to move forward. And with that, we highlighted that the city has also been with special ad hoc meetings, looking at budgets, looking at different funding options, looking at maximizing grants, looking at technology to improve efficiency. We've really looked at all sorts of different options on trying to figure out how to maximize that funding. Finding F4, the Yuba City Council is attempting to address the serious problems with the deteriorating municipal road and the funding. And so that was highlighted. And so with the recommendations, and so I'll dive into the recommendations here a little bit. They had 4 recommendations. Recommendation 1, the City Council of Yuba City must create a funding plan by April 30th, 2024 to finance the program that the Public Works Department has formed to be continuous improvements of road pavement conditions. And so with the response, the recommendation requires further analysis. The timeline isn't adequate, April 30th, 2024. That really doesn't allow a timeline for a funding option and then prepare a plan that is really adequate to do that. And so the response basically highlights that and puts some of the details to it. Recommendation 2, Yuba City Council must make efforts to survey and determine the public's views on a sales tax for additional funding to address road pavement maintenance on December 31st. We disagree with that view. We feel that the city has been surveyed. They've been surveyed multiple times and also recently with via the county with their recent effort. And so we believe efforts to go out and do another survey where we know we have a strong poll that people support good roads in Yuba City. It's not warranted that we go out again and resurvey and spend that money to find out that people care about their roads. Recommendation 3, the Sutter County Grand Jury recommends that the Yuba City Council authorize an independent audit to be completed by April 30th, 2024 to examine if additional cost savings can be found to pay for road maintenance or refurbishment. The audit findings must be made available. Again, we feel that that's not warranted. We feel that we're audited continuously. Currently, there's a couple audits going on by the state for the SB1 funds, for some local RMRA funds. There's been special ad hoc review committees. There's really this, and with this report, it's been a public document that's now highlights these findings with professional credentialed people. And so we don't feel having another audit will really get us to any new news regarding the subject. And then the last recommendation, it calls for Yuba City Council should propose a sales tax to only Yuba City voters by the next election to increase funding for only road pavement maintenance and refurbishment to Yuba City. And so with that, we're also saying that needs further analysis because for the grand jury, they really did a deep dive into the roads, and I respect that, and I think they came away with a good understanding of some of the costs and what we've done to look at options on trying to find funding, but they didn't look at a comprehensive need for the city as far as what's also needed for public safety, what's been brought up as far as priorities and how that coordinates with the county. And so with that, the response calls for further analysis. And so with that, my recommendation tonight is to approve the proposed response to the 22-23 Sutter County Grand Jury final report regarding road conditions in the city. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. We do have a speaker card from Heather Essman.
Sorry. So, good evening again. Yes. So first, just for the sake of information for those people that are paying attention, the finding number 3 is a positive finding, therefore there is no response required. I say that because I'm the trainer for the California Grand Jurors Association, and I trained this grand jury and the one that's currently there. But I can tell you that that is a grand jury that is very diverse in peoples. And I think that one of the findings that they were, or recommendations that they were trying to send to you, and I don't know them, I was not part of this jury, but to kind of read between the lines, is they're telling you what they think would work, would pass. So just take that. It's not just a group. At least 12 of them had to vote for that to go through. So just keeping that in mind as far as using that information. It didn't work for the county with the grand jury report that we wrote. They tried to use that as their focus, as their marketing for their sales tax. But I was in the Sonoma County this weekend, and their sales tax is 10%, something like that. And so when you look at some of the things that we're going to need monies for, when you go and hold your hand out to the state and say, let's see if we can find a grant, and our sales tax, we don't have any additional anything on top of the sales tax. We have the lowest amount that you can have in the state. Then you have to ask yourself, well, why should we give you the money when you won't even ask your own people for it? So at some point we have to decide as a group if we want to have good roads, if we want to have law enforcement, et cetera. Everybody else is paying more. So why shouldn't we? And I think that the city is prepared to do that. I just hope that you make the right decision on what you go for, because I think the county made that mistake. 1% was too much. If they had done 0.5% for law enforcement, they'd have it now, and they wouldn't be having to sell off all their property like you guys are doing. So trust me, I've noticed that. And I'm hoping, though, if you have any questions on how grand jury stuff works, I can tell you as a trainer. But I do appreciate you respecting the timelines and actually making a response, because sometimes that doesn't work. And that your city attorney knows how to respond correctly. That's appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further public comments on this item? Name and address for the record, please.
Benjamin Garcia, 710 Aspen Drive. 3 minutes again? Is that standard? Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure. I guess I just want to start off by saying, although my experience with the city has not been very pleasant, I'm here to participate and provide solutions and be part of the whole situation, and not just someone who is pissed off all the time. I know that one of the suggestions was an audit, and I don't know to what degree or how, there's variations of audits, and I guess, in my opinion, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, in the sense that because of my experience with the city, I've noticed, some people wasting a lot of time doing things that aren't very valuable, in my opinion. And I'll just quote something that happened with Elon Musk. He basically cut 80% of the staff at Twitter because he realized that they just didn't need all those people, because they were focused doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing. All that funding could be now focused towards somewhere else. And again, it's been my experience, and I'm gonna bring this up just for the sole purpose of speaking to this situation right here. But I had a code enforcer from Yuba City pin something on my door saying I was a public nuisance, cited some municipal codes, and I responded, and I've corrected half of it, and he came back and said I was compliant. So my point is, either that person is incompetent and cannot interpret the code properly, or I'm a public nuisance. It can't be both. And so my point is that we have people that maybe aren't educated in the city, maybe need to be let go. Maybe there's some staff, and I'm sorry to say that, but I'm just being real, and I'm being honest that, maybe there's some people that shouldn't work here anymore, and that could help save some money, because when I hear a problem, I think, how am I going to have to pay for that as a taxpayer? How is that going to end up in a permit fee or something else? So that's my concern, and that's my solution, and thank you.
Thank you. So was there a question about the auditing component of the grand jury report? Was that what I heard?
No, I mean, I don't know what kind of audit they were recommending, but I think auditing maybe people within the city and whether or not they're doing things that are adding value
Okay.
or worth spending money on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Burns, and I live at 1885 Greengate Street. My suggestion is for this road situation, you give all city employees a raise, okay? Lower the retirement age, then let the roads, abandon them. There you go.
Thank you. Any further public comments on this item? Any further public comments? I'll bring it matter back to council for comment and or action.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Moody, thank you for your response. As you mentioned, we've seen this several times, but I think that the responses back to the Sutter County Grand Jury are spot on, and I applaud those. I think, one of the big questions I continue to get is how did we let these roads get into this poor of a condition? And they're legitimate questions. The roads aren't good. You need I know that there's efforts being made right now to patch some spots, but I do think that it's fair to state that some of and these aren't meant to be excuses by any means, but this in my mind, my opinion, are some facts. Number one, the amount of truck traffic that we see in our community now is directly affecting some of the roadways, not all, but some of them. We did not necessarily have the heavy haul trucks running around. So that's on some of those streets, and maybe Garden Highway is one of those. I think that's a contributing factor. There was a year and a half or 2 years, and most people in this audience, I think, looking around understand my feelings on the COVID lockdown, but it was real, and it did prohibit us from either through supply chain problems or other issues to get to some roadway repair. And unfortunately, we had a wet winter after 3 really dry ones, so it really exacerbated the condition of the roads. As you mentioned, the cost has just absolutely skyrocketed. And I know there are folks in this audience that are feeling those same price increases, whether it be for fuel, and a lot of the stuff that goes into road repair has to do with things like fuel costs and other petroleum products. I think the other thing that's out there that it should be noted is you guys have been really successful in leveraging grants. Without those grants, where would we be? And I can cite Franklin Avenue, I can cite Bridge Street project, the bridge even, and the hopefully soon to be completed Walton project. But I also think it's important to note that in some cases, through the city's planned growth, we have inherited roads that were not intended to carry traffic in the way that they do now. And those were old county roads that were built to a certain standard back then that now we are responsible for, and therefore we have to fix them. But they are not necessarily built to the same strict standards that I think we're doing now. Those are just a couple tidbits. I know we're very heavily engaged at the present time trying to find a way and a means to prioritize those roads which we are trying to get repaired. At the end of the day, it's all about where are we prioritizing the spending of the money. The gentleman spoke about, as a council person anyway, am I putting it into police? Am I putting it into fire? Am I putting it into roads? Am I giving them all some? These are the things that we deal with periodically. And we do know that roads are a big problem. We do know that at least my email and my phone, and I'm sure my colleagues feel the same way, constantly hear about the roads. And I know from personal experience driving on their roads that they're not good, but we do have this as an issue that we are contending with. Appreciate the grand jury's comments. And I do know that as a city council in the city of Yuba City, we're working on our efforts through the ability to pay to try to repair roads.
Thank you, sir.
Through the mayor. Ben, thank you for working on that response. Like my colleague said, I appreciate the grand jury's suggestions they brought forward and to us. But at the same time, when you read that report, it's almost like they've been setting in what we've been working on for about the past 4.5, 5 years. And we go back to, why don't we need another audit? City already does a comprehensive audit once a year, plus we have all these other independent audits for certain segments. Plus the council went through and set up the ad hoc about 5 years ago, and we were already doing all of those things where we had those meetings and said, let's quit hiring because it's a budget line item. Let's start realigning the positions within the city to hire what we need, not just what's in the budget. So we're already doing all of those. I think the response is appropriate, and the public needs to know that this is something that was already on our minds, and we'll take this under advisement. And I know our ad hoc committee is working on a lot of stuff. You've told us $150 million to fix our roads. Pardon the French, but how in the hell are we going to fix that with $5.7 million a year?
Yeah.
I mean, we're having to deal with what we were dealt with from the state. And we know that Sacramento keeps everything Sacramento can, and we're trying to figure it out here. And roads are a top priority. We've got to fix them. Bridge Street, I am extremely glad that that's getting fixed, because that one section of road would just beat the crud out of your car if you drove across it. Better not have a drink in your hand, a Coke, because it's going to spill. It was so bad. But we are working on it. I appreciate the efforts you've put on. I appreciate your presentation. And the public needs to understand, this isn't something new. We've been working on these roads and prioritizing them and trying to do what we can within our means in all the years I've been on the council. So I appreciate your work.
Okay, it's up to me. Thank you again, Mr. Moody, for the response. As one of the individuals in this room that's been on the Sutter County Grand Jury, I will tell you that a lot of time and a lot of work goes into these reports, and those individuals that essentially volunteer their time for the Sutter County Grand Jury, they take this job seriously. They really do. I mean, it's time away from your family. You're going on tours. It's a lot of work. In this particular case, I was kind of delighted that the grand jury decided to focus the report on something that this council has definitely noticed for a while now, because we use the roads as well, and some of us walk and even ride our bikes on those roads, and so they're really they've been highlighted the need. And I think, I don't know, if Mr. Moody, if it was you, but was somebody in your department just explained it really well to me. When it comes to road maintenance, a lot of it's it's health maintenance, healthcare maintenance, preventative healthcare. Whereas if you wait to go to the doctor instead of taking steps to avoid that, at the end you're stuck with was it $150 million? So I do appreciate the grand jury looking into this. What was mentioned earlier, though, it's kind of hinted that the recommendation, if you correct me if I'm wrong, is they're looking for a special tax?
That's per the grand jury report. And,
okay.
I would to add on to the public's comment, I could definitely tell from my meetings there was a diverse group, a lot of folks that represent our community that are anti-tax, and for that report to come out and be specific to call for a sales tax measure, I think highlighted their understanding of the need.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. So I'm gonna run this by our city attorney real quick. Can you briefly explain the difference between a specialty tax needing to pass, or versus a general?
So, thank you, Mayor, for putting me on the spot, because I always forget whether it's 50% or 66%. I can't remember what the other one is. So, there are two different types of taxes that can go on the ballot. One is called a special. The special tax actually has a higher threshold to meet. In other words, you basically have to get 2/3 of the people in order to vote for it. The thing about a special tax, however, it's limited to special items. So you know exactly where that money is going.
Right.
A general tax is a lower threshold. It only requires 50% plus one person in order to get passed. Though in theory, it could apply generally. It could just be a tax to be for general sorts of use. That being said, the City Council does have certain options in order to focus the spending on that. And those are steps that we would probably discuss once you got closer to the time.
Thank you, City Attorney. And I'm glad you highlighted that, because I'm asked, this topic comes up a lot, and there's a big difference between 66.6% and 50% plus one. And but I do appreciate the grand jury's focus on the need for improving our roads. And with that, I'll bring it back to council for action.
Mayor?
Yes.
Recommend item 10, recommendation approve the response to the 2022-2023 Sutter County Grand Jury final report regarding road conditions in the city.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Pasquale.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Baumgarten. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Moody. Business item number 11, accept grant funding and expenditure recommendations for the California Citizens Option for Public Safety, COPS grant for approximately $100,000, presented by Brian Baker, Police Chief. Chief, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight before you, we have a staff report to accept the COPS grant funding of approximately $100,000. We currently have a balance of about $410,000 in that account. We've kind of, through the budget process, allocated potentially using $140,000 of that funding for an infrastructure improvement project going on at the PD potentially. So we've left over a balance of about $270,000. Traditionally, we've bought items that for technology-related issues, improved CAD system upgrades in our dispatch center, weapons and tactical equipment for our SWAT team. Last year, with some general fund monies that the council was able to allocate to us, we purchased a Bearcat armored personnel carrier for safety of our officers and community members in tactical situations, which that may be here in the next month, so hopefully that'll come through. This year, we plan on spending about $162,000 for a variety of things, for defensive tactics equipment, for training, so we can still maintain high standards of training for our personnel, forensic computer equipment for our investigations division. Community outreach was kind of the big winner this year, as far as trying to get some materials and equipment together for our community policing coordinator to go out and host events in neighborhoods and in the various council districts to make that job a little bit easier for her. So in all, it's $162,250. That'll still leave us kind of a good little nest egg in case we have some sort of emergency come up that we need some additional funding. So the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing and then adopt a resolution authorizing me to accept the 23-24 COPS funding and approve the expenditure recommendations, and also authorize and see the Chief Financial Officer to make the budget adjustments as necessary. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Chief. The public hearing for consideration of grant funding and expenditure recommendations for the California Citizens Option for Public Safety, COPS grant, of approximately $100,000 is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any public comments? Okay, seeing none, I am now closing the public hearing and bringing the matter back to council.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the chief of police to accept the fiscal year 23-24 California Citizens Option for Public Safety COPS funding and approve expenditure recommendations, and authorize the finance director to make the supplemental budget appropriation and grant revenues from 100-43117 and grant expenditures to 2180-69201.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Shaw.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Moving along to number 12, establishing rules and regulations for the use of the city seal, city logo, and city council pins. And this is presented by Sierra Wakefield, our city clerk administrator.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As you know, I'm Sierra Wakefield. I'm the City Clerk Administrator here for the City of Yuba City. And I'm here tonight to talk with you about the use of our city seal, our city logo, and city council pins. Although the city has worked hard over the years to establish a recognizable brand, maintain that image, there's been no formal rules adopted related to how the seal, the logo, and city council pins can and should be used. So no formal rules and regulations exist at this point. And so as part of this conversation, I am proposing some starting places, and then we can go from there. So as you know, establishing guidelines regarding the seal, the pin, and the logo will help us to maintain some consistency, help us protect our brand identity, and to outline a clear path going forward should any of those items be used fraudulently in the future. One thing I want to point out here at the bottom of the screen is we have the city seal, the logo, and then the pin, which council wears, of course. One of the things that we're proposing, the staff is proposing as part of this, is that council adopt these formally as the logos and the seals, because we do have several versions floating around, you can see in this room. There's more than one seal, right? Because over time, things have evolved and we have different folks using different things depending on when they started and what they're comfortable with. And so just bringing some consistency to that too will be part of this. So pretty straightforward. I wanted to just highlight, there's a lot of detail in the language for the municipal code for obvious reasons, but some of the key highlights that I wanted to point out, this is all pretty common sense stuff. You know, using the seal, the logos, and you know, the pin should only be used, you know, for a city official business. We don't want any random person being able to represent themselves as a city official, and so for that reason, we want to make sure that that's clear. We want to make sure that, you know, our vendors and folks that are making, you know, shirts and hats and various things for us, you know, are authorized to do so, and they're not doing that for folks that may be using those items fraudulently, like I mentioned. And the last but not least, the city pin, for those of you that may not be familiar, I think all of our council members have them on this evening. They're pretty fancy pins that the city actually doesn't pay for. It's a tradition that that Councilmember Shaw started, I think, a couple of years ago, and the incoming mayor, you know, kind of gives these as gifts to the rest of the council. But anyway, They are significant, and we want to make sure that they are treated as such. And so those pins will be used, obviously, worn by the current council. And then there is some language in the ordinance that would allow, if council would like, to put some guidelines around what that looks like for folks as they leave office. And, you know, if there's special events and things that you want former council members to be able to wear those things later. We can adopt some language by resolution to address that. So I know that there were some questions surrounding that, so we can talk a little bit more about that if you have questions. But the bottom line is we want to make sure everybody's on the same page, using the same seal, logo, and pin. We want to make sure that those things are being used appropriately and that there's rules and penalties outlined very clearly so that if anyone decides to do something that's inappropriate, that we have some recourse. So with that, I am here to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City establishing rules and regulations for the use of the city seal, city logo, and city council pins by title only and waive the first reading. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. I appreciate that. Public hearing. The public hearing for consideration of establishing rules and regulations for the use of the city seal, city logo, and city council pins is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. We do have a card from Mr. Manny Cordoza.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. First of all, what is the city logo? The logo behind you was made in 1984. The logo has changed many times in the 40 years that I've been involved with the city. So which is the logo? This shirt was made in 2014 when I was just leaving as a city employee. And there's been several different models made. And I know when I read the form, it was sitting there saying, you know, you're not allowed to wear them. And I wore this in my 2016 campaign and my 2020 campaign. And now if we're doing this, they're saying I won't be allowed to wear this because it's saying that the city's sponsoring me, which it isn't. They were just saying, you know, I was running for a city council seat. So I did a little research. And I have 3 topics here, and the first one was, I checked in, is the city doesn't have a copyright, a patent, or a trademark on the city logo. So, as a result, it can be used for anyone. The second one was First Amendment. Not every use of a trademark constitutes infringement of the First Amendment, protects my use of these logos for purposes on non-commercial political expression. And the third one was trademark infringement law is primarily designed to prevent confusion of potential customers, not to prevent political speech. And this was done by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on these. So other cities have tried this, and now I can see if someone's slandering the city and stuff like that, yeah, you know, you got to cut them off and do stuff. But if you're just out, like, okay, we'll just say campaign. If you're just out campaigning and, you know, this shirt was given to me by the city of Yuba City when I was working here for my years of service. So it's, you know, you gave it to me and I understand I can't use it. No, and, you know, and the city did sell these shirts to people in the past. I don't think they're doing it now, but you were able to buy shirts, you were able to buy hats over the counter in the Public Works Department in years to come. So, and then what is our logo? Is it the hat that I'm wearing, which is different? Is it the shirt? And then the pins are all different. So I just want to bring that to your attention, and hopefully that we can take this matter, like, you know, like I said, if you're being slandered or bad mouthing, no, I'm saying you can't put it on paper, run a campaign, have a city logo on your campaign paper. You can't do that, but just walk in the street with a shirt on, I don't see why you can't do that, because I'm not being sponsored by the city. I'm just saying, hey, you know, in the past, I'm running for city council, and you know, it's Yuba City. Other people that run for campaigns, run for Sutter County supervisors, they got a Sutter County logo on their shirt when they're running, and there hasn't been any issues up till this being brought to our attention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cortez, did you have a specific question regarding what is the city? If I heard you correctly, your question was, what is the city's logo currently?
Well, I already know. I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what the new one is now, but you know, they've changed through the years.
Okay.
They've changed.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
So if I could just comment on that, Manny. You're right, they have changed. It has changed many times over the years, and we have many that are kind of in use, depending on who's using them. And so part of what we're doing here today is making it clear that these are the authorized logos that we'll be using going forward. And should that change in the future, then a new logo would need to be adopted by council.
So then it's okay to wear this?
The shirts that are given by the city that's a different thing than someone trying to represent themselves as a city employee and having city branded merchandise made.
Thank you.
I think there's a distinction that needs to be made, and it's pretty clear in the language in the ordinance. But perhaps Shannon, our city attorney, would like to speak to that.
You're up, Shannon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Just to address a couple of things with regards to copyright, there's not a requirement to formally have your mark registered with the U.S. Patent Office. If I write a book or make a song, it's automatically copyrighted by law. It's just you have to prove it at some future point in the event that there's some sort of litigation to enforce the copyright. But because the city is taking formal action by ordinance, and it's being recorded, and it's sealed, and it's through the clerk, then that saves the city the time of having to get a formal copyright, but it is copyrighted. So the city can copyright and protect its seal. It can do the same with regards to its logos. As to its logos, the city has previously adopted resolution with regards, we have a policy, I understand, or at least some sort of a process for people for use of the logos. So the big thing is it's much like a police uniform, right? You don't want non-officers wearing a police uniform and saying, I'm just doing this because I want to support law enforcement or whatever the case is. There's certain restrictions, especially under state law, with regards to police uniforms. So with regards to the city's seal and logo items, those will be protected. And it's really, your ordinance tonight really focuses on deception and fraud. So those are the two big concerns. If you've been given a shirt back in the day by the city and you're not representing yourself as a city employee, and it was a gift or a formal presentation, you're not, as long as you don't engage in deception or fraud with regards to that, you can certainly have that shirt. I would keep it around. I think it's a great shirt to have. But the key is, what do you do with it? Because if you wear the shirt and you go out and say, I'm representing the city, that's when you go into the deception. That's when you go into the fraud line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Yes.
Okay, my name's Thomas Burns, 1885 Greengate Street. So this is a strange topic for the city council. It seems like Joe Public here is only hearing half of the story, and like we're kind of kept in the dark for some reason. I mean, that's what it appears. It appears like maybe there's more going on that maybe the public should know. So why don't you tell us?
Through the mayor, if I may,
yeah.
I typically don't respond to comments, but I did want to flag for the public that for years, our ordinance has had a section reserved specifically for its seal and these other sorts of items. So when the city clerk is talking about cleanup, it's because it's been like this for 10, 15 years or more. And as some of you may know, the staff have been trying to clean up items and bring them forward and get them resolved so there's no question going forward.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item. Any further public comment?
Benjamin Garcia, 710 Aspen Drive. I was kind of in agreement with the attorney, I guess. It seems like there's two separate issues, one being, you know, the copyright of the seal and logo, the other one being like false impersonation. And those are two separate things. Obviously, if I go out and I wear a badge impersonating an officer, I'm committing a serious crime. My question, I guess, is how much time is it going to take, and how many resources are you going to have to expend just to get this, whatever it is that you're proposing, up and running? Because in light and in view of the road situation, I'm wondering if it's something that, with all due respect, should take priority at this point.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item? Seeing none, I am now closing the public hearing and bringing the matter back to council for comment or action.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Sierra, thank you for bringing this forward tonight, and thank you for your work on everything that you do for us. But I do want to clarify one thing, and I appreciate the accolades for the pen, and the mayor was talking about it earlier, but this wasn't a council member Shaw thing. This was the full council, and there was 3 of us. 2 of my colleagues worked with me on this, and we worked together, because how the pen came about was we wanted something that identified to the public that you were a member of the council. That was different than the round pins that of the seal that we had been giving out, like M&Ms or Pez or Skittles. I mean, we'd just been giving those everywhere. So that's how this came about, and it was a collaborative effort. So I want to recognize my 2 colleagues here with Mark and Sean, because we brought back elements of historical value from the city, from things that we've all learned in our professional careers, and then presented this informally to the other council members. And we did all of this on our own at no expense to the city. And I want to be clear in that. No expense to the city. The city has not paid for the mold for this, the development of this, or any of the pins to date, period. So, where do we get to where we're at now is, I heard a lot of things that kind of concerned me, but going back to our city attorney, it's all about the deception and the fraud. And deception and fraud can be very subtle, or it can be blatant. Why do we need to protect it? Because we don't want anybody sending mail out with a city round seal, the Yuba City with the ducks, or anything that to people in the city that implies anything that is inappropriate, that is actual fraud. So, I only get 3 minutes now. What did you say? I was going to say, what did you say? Welcome to the podium or welcome to the dais? But with those, it's our seal, our logos, and the pen is what we call intellectual property that's been developed by the city. And it has protections built into the law already, and we need to control that so that it's not misused. It should never be used in the political arena. And when we see shirts that has the logo with the fruit and everything on it that says, hey, Dave Shaw running for District 1, we got a problem. Because that's misleading in of itself, because that implies an endorsement by the city. So that's a line that should never be crossed to begin with. Shouldn't be on any of our political literature. The one question I have in clarification is, when you go back and you look at the one with the ducks, but it is and we have this on our shirts. One thing that I think that we need to add to that is we often refer to it as the fruit or no fruit, because it's the same logo with the added fruit. And we tend to use those a lot of times. I know I use them if I'm coming to a council meeting, I'm in slacks, I'll use fruit. If I'm going to a ribbon cutting in shorts, I go non-fruit. It's just one looks nicer than the other, I think, It's just a personal choice. But I think we need to protect that as well, okay? But there is one part of the proposal that you brought forward that I do think that we need to tweak a little, okay? First of all, I agree with 99% of what you developed there, because this is about preventing fraud and deception. But I spoke with Mr. Chaffin before we came in tonight, and it's specifically going to these pins because the council worked and wanted something that would be something we could carry with us out of office as well, going forward, and the public would recognize and see that we did do our public service. So with that, Mr. Chaffin, we talked about some language because we don't want to show up wearing this like we're on the council current when we're no longer there, but we want to be able to, the chamber gala, if we wanted to wear it there, or some other event that called for it, we would want that. Can you read what we kind of talked about?
Certainly, Councilmember Shaw. The change would only be to section 2-4.04, subsection G, that's the last one there, and just to the first sentence. And this is how the sentence would read. The city council pin depicted above shall be worn only by current and former members of the city council who were presented the pin while in office to recognize and identify their active service and may be worn at any time.
And the change with that, because the other one, the way it was currently written said it can only be worn by current council members. So it gives us the ability to wear it for occasions after we're out of office.
That is correct.
Okay.
So for clarification, are we then removing the language that says, notwithstanding the council may adopt guidelines by resolution to provide for use of the city council pin by former members?
If I may, by including that language, it gives the city council the option of establishing guidelines for members of the city council, prior members, who were never formally presented with the pin while they were in office. So if the council wanted to present a prior mayor or a city council member, then it could do so by resolution without having to go through the ordinance process. So it gives additional flexibility to the city council if it wants it.
Thank you, Mr. Chaffin. I think that more or less encompassed what we had in mind when we created this, because it was a way to create something that, took us through our 4 to 8 years up here. So, and I appreciate your help. And with that, that's the language that I would be looking for to move this thing forward. So, as well as looking at the fruit.
And if I could just briefly, Sierra, I had that exact same question. I don't want you to think you're the only one to ask that question, because I asked that question when I was talking with Councilmember Shaw between closed session and now, and that's the answer that we ended up coming with. So thank you for flagging that. I appreciate you being able to do that on your feet.
Any other comments?
Through the mayor.
Thank you, Sierra, for the work on this. I know it's a moving target, probably will be for a while. I know there's a lot of different city logos. In fact, you're standing behind one right now that still exists. So I guess I have a couple questions. Number one, because there are costs involved with swapping things out, should we be considering some grandfathering for a bit rather than take the burden of having to rebrand? I know I've had some experience rebranding. It's expensive. So I think we need to chat about that. The other thing is teeth. I don't see anything in the proposed language that would give us the stick, if you will, if someone decided to copycat either the logo or a pin or any of the other stationery or what have you. I know this is a big issue in all departments, by the way, so I don't think it just stops here. I'm sure our employees in the police department and in the fire department also would probably want to protect things like their T-shirts and their hats and such. So we probably, I'm not putting that burden on you, but I think once we swing the door open a little bit, we probably need to take a little broader look. And I appreciate that, because I think a little prevention can save a lot of anxiety down the road. But my question more to my colleagues than anybody else at this point is, we have a flag behind us. We have a, what I call the old school seal, at least when I was here. We've got what's in front of Sierra right now. We've got 3 different versions, 2 different versions, not the pin. You know, how should we handle, you know, going forward as we ease our way out of those things to come to what I think the idea here is, hey, this is the city pin. Hey, this is the city logo. Hey, this is the city flag. Because I think it is important to do that. Otherwise, you do open yourself for the potential for fraud. Thoughts?
You're the mayor? Hitting on the fraud and the deceptive use of logos and as such, I'll give you some real world example. This last weekend, purchased tickets to go flying from Delta, and I was scammed by someone that uses the Delta, all their information, and no tickets ever showed up. So I finally went down to Delta, down in the airport, and they verified that there were no tickets ever issued. So the real world is people do bad things with things they shouldn't be using. And this is just a step of making that a fact that you can't use this and you're going to get hammered. So that's my take on this whole thing.
You're the mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry, Councilmember Harris. Please feel free to go ahead. I just wanted to answer Councilmember Baumgarten's question. Thank you. Councilmember Baumgarten, the penalties for violating this ordinance are, it's a misdemeanor and a public nuisance, which gives the city options both criminally and penalty civilly. So there's 2 different enforcement mechanisms. With regards to the costs of switching things out, the way that it's currently worded, it does not mandate that the city switch out immediately. So the city council can choose to keep the current flag, the current logo, or the current placard or whatever is behind it for whatever period that it wants to. It's not required to post right now. What it means, though, is we have set a standard and we've set a definite starting point for moving forward as new items are ordered and stuff. So there is built-in flexibility so that it's not going to come at a cost to the city. It's just setting it going forward for future use.
Thank you, sir.
Kind of. You know, we talk about deception and fraud. I think it's very important that be the main focus of this, to prevent that. I also think on a little bit of, on a lower end level it provides consistency for us, because we had some issues before. I think George caught it. We were going to put some literature together or something, and so he caught that, no, this is the logo that we should use to make, so it's all uniform throughout, and make sure that when we use something that's official, that we have a choice of 1 or 2 or 3 others, that and that's the only thing we can do for consistency purposes. Also, the older stuff like Manny was talking about, you know, we talk about the logo, we talk about police uniform, which is a very good example, but then you think of like sports memorabilia, how they try to regulate things. People tattoo logos of Raiders or whatever on their arms. How can you control that? You can't. So it's, and you know, Manny walks around town, he's one of the biggest mascots for the city there is, and so do we want to prevent that? Someone who just appreciates their hometown? No. But we want to formalize it to where, for official business purposes, these are the choices and only choices that we can use. So I think for that additional reason, this is a good idea to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So it looks like we've got direction on what the question was answered with regarding the penalty and when and if we need to change anything else. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking to council for action on this item.
Through the mayor. I would move that we introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City establishing rules and regulations as amended earlier with that additional language for the use of the city seal, city logo, and city council pins by title only, and waive the first reading.
I got a motion by Councilmember Shaw.
Second with the amendment.
And a tie, but I'll give it to Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. Okay, future agenda items. This is the opportunity to discuss with the city manager about items that came up in this meeting, in the meeting this evening, that you would like to have brought back to the council at a later date. Do we have any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Reports and communications. The following reports and communication items are provided for the council's information. No action can be taken on items under this section unless council agrees to include it on a subsequent agenda. City manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I just want to note that Ann Gillen, our new Community Services Director, is here tonight. This is her first official council meeting. And she'll be bringing forth her first agenda item at the September 19th council meeting. So, yeah, you can see that she's a little nervous back there, but she'll do great.
She's going to do great.
And then I just also want to thank Brad McIntyre, even though he did not want to receive a proclamation, he just wanted to retire and go off into his happy retirement life. Just to acknowledge that we appreciate Brad's years of service with the city. There was a party for him last week, and he will be missed, but we're super excited to have Ann in this new position. So thank you.
Thank you. City council reports. We're going to begin with Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, Ann. I know that you're bringing a lot of energy and a lot of good things to the department. I look forward to working with you. Also, reiterate what the city manager said. I tried to leverage Mr. McIntyre into a formal recognition, and he was absolutely adamant. But I think it's important to note that of his contributions to the city over the years that he was here, and I know that he's going to remain in the community, and hopefully we can continue to leverage him as an asset for all the stuff that he has done and he can do. Things that I participated in really quickly here. Ampla Health, for those of you who are familiar with the city, Ampla Health is building quite a big structure in the old drive-in movie theater area over on Market Street. We had the opportunity to go and actually were invited to sign a girder. One of the top girders on the building. Was a unique way of acknowledging the growth that they're doing. But tens of thousands of people plan to be served by them at this facility, and a nice addition to the city for sure. Went to the Regional Housing Authority. It was a relatively routine meeting. They still are waiting for some of the tax credits, et cetera, that are coming on the projects. So hopefully as those come in, then those things that we have a participation agreement with them, we'll continue to move those forward. Certainly very privileged to attend a ribbon cutting for Adventure Church. They invited us to come and participate as they continue to open up their new building, which was the old bowling alley. They've really done a fantastic job inside of that facility, and probably one of the bigger keys is that they really are committed to opening that up to the community. So it is I'm hesitant to say it's a community center, but they've made it clear that the community would be welcome to use their facility. Of course, went to the dedication of our new park, the DRS Baines Park. I went by yesterday, I guess it was, and drove by, parking lot full. People, you're using that pump track, a great asset, good use of taxpayer and grant funds, if you will. And I think it's a fantastic addition to the city. And one thing I would like to note is, there's, again, sometimes, as we sit up here, we take a good dose of humble pie when things don't go well, but sometimes things do go well. And if you're looking around the city right now, we're not just putting up pretty pictures on the wall. Things are coming out of the ground, whether it's houses or Ampla Health or other things. And, I don't know that we do as good a job as we probably should, making sure that the public knows about all the good things, but that's okay too, because our culture isn't necessarily to run around and pat ourselves on the back. It's to get stuff done. And our staff, I think, is phenomenal when they do that. So those are my comments for this evening, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Harris. Oh, excuse me, Vice Mayor Harris.
Well, you know, I've been out of town for a couple of weeks, and so I have a negative report. Thank you for that.
Okay. Welcome back, sir. Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm piggybacking on Councilmember Baumgarten. The Ampla Health thing is huge. To see that old dilapidated piece of property that I would go to the drive-in to being utilized for such a great thing, and the numbers that were told to me of how many visits were going to be made at that health facility. I mean, it's a great addition to the community. The Baines Park, I rode my bike over when we dedicated it, and I tried to pump track, and don't do that if you don't have any skill level. It will hurt you. With that, I have nothing more else to report.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those of us who are wise at our old age do not go bicycling on a pump track. We will leave it right there. Piggybacking off what Councilmember Baumgarten said, Ampla Health, thank you for the honor in which that truly was, the invitation to our city council for our members to go and be a part of that. That was truly an honor. And you know, I look forward to everything they're going to do there and the community that they're going to serve, because as they were sharing with us, I mean, the numbers were vast and the programs they offer were vast. So just a huge shout out and a thank you to them. Also attended the Yuba City stand down. Most all of us did. That is great work that they're doing out there, and it's an honor to be a part of that. I haven't heard the final numbers, but it looked like they were pretty darn busy when we were out there. Likewise, I've been having ongoing meetings and events and such with Beale Air Force Base and the commanders out there. And the last event was something that has never happened at Beale Air Force Base for lifting morale. And they had a big outreach with a concert right there in the U on the flight line. We've got another event coming up trying to reach the morale. It'll be October, I believe it's the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. But we have the opportunity to reach out and participate. And I've been working with Ms. Langley that hopefully we'll be able to go out and be there and let the residents of Beale and the airmen and airwomen out there know that we're here and we support them. The park knocked it out of the park, literally. I mean, it was awesome. Brad McIntyre, I know you're not here, but thank you for your years of service. And I know you're going to do a great job because you've hidden all the gnomes. So they're gone. So Adventure Church, they did a great job. The one thing, people have used a lot of words about the renovation that Adventure Church did. I just want to frame it with this, and Mark kind of hit on it about they're open to the community. When that building was a bowling alley, it reached a lot of people. But now that it has been reinvented and reimagined, I think it's going to reach our entire community, not just a segment, because they've been that open with it. So wish them all the best success. Two meetings that popped up in the last couple of weeks, RWMA and EDC, both were just regular and routine in nature. And I've got GSEC coming up next week. And with that, I will get out of the way.
Thank you, sir. Well, it's time for mine. And welcome, man. That's got to be exciting. So congratulations and welcome. This is going to be piggyback off my colleagues, but it starts with the Yuba City Stand Down, which is an amazing event that's held once a year now. It's at the fairgrounds. I was able to get invite my dad and my brother, who are both veterans, and it was well attended. I look forward to doing it again next year. Ampla Health opening. I think I got a July 24 date on when they say that's going to be open. But that place is amazing. Attended a Yuba City PD promotion. We've had some retirements, so that means people are more likely going to get promoted. So I attended a promotion ceremony. Of course, the big The big event, the DDR Park opening, I was amazed by the turnout of that event. And not only the turnout from our community, but former and current congressmen and senators, assembly. I was just floored by the amount of community outreach for that. And then the Adventure Church, it was not what I expected. That place is massive, and it looks state-of-the-art. It's new. I wish them all the best. And I will do a plug for our Kiwanis group, Early Risers. They knocked it out of the park with Blues and Brews again this year. That club donated a portion of the funds that went towards a play structure at our park as well. And I'll close by mentioning at the park opening, you're getting pulled in about 100 different directions, but I was lucky enough to meet a gentleman who was in town for the LDS church's opening, who is from Seattle, who happened to be Punjab, and he was brought to our community to work as an interpreter at the temple. And once he figured out who I was, he came over and he said, you know, you have such an amazingly diverse and welcoming community, and it really kind of got stuck in my throat. So it was nice to hear that from somebody who's not familiar with our town. But with that, this meeting is adjourned.